Okay, thank you. Uh, can you see anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I I will repeat myself from the last meeting a little bit, but it's important because the upcoming changes are important. I will start with the changes that affect you if you are building WinForms or WPF applications for .NET Core in 21.1. You may skip this, and if you are still building .NET Framework applications, or if you are building, for example, only Blazor applications. So the changes are about merging NuGet packages for .NET Core desktop development. I mean, in the past, we had NuGet packages that are called like DevExpress.Windows Desktop, and now they are merged with .NET Framework packages. That means that you will have one big package that contains assemblies for multiple platforms. So it will cover .NET Framework and .NET Core desktop assemblies. Here you can see a screenshot of a demo application. On the left side, it's 20.2. Here you can see these Windows desktop packages. And on the right, you can see version 21.1, and you can see that these Windows desktop packages are missing. So instead, you can see the packages that you may remember from .NET Framework.
Yeah. Then Dennis said that also means it is more of a more consistent and fluent migration between full framework and 21.1, at least from the assemblies and package namespaces. Where before there was like the break with the Windows desktop, because .NET 5 has like homogenized back together all the packages. So it's easier to switch from full framework to 21.1 package wise than it would be to 22.2.
I think for most users, it's there is not much difference, because
if they decide yet to switch, so they didn't switch before and now they want to switch, it's easier to switch right now because they are more similar than before. At least that's what I had in my opinion, and what I did in the last.
I will cover this in a second, if you allow me.
Yeah,
please.
Sorry.
To simplify this migration, we have updated our project converter tool, and it allows you to just upgrade these packages automatically. So you can just run it from Visual Studio or from a file system, and it will do most of the work for you. At least it will rename these Windows desktop packages for you automatically. For XAF users, it's also important to note that we now target .NET 5 in 21.1, and Project Converter will additionally try to upgrade your projects for you, your XAF projects. I mean, if you run our project converter tool, it will display this warning message with additional information, links to Microsoft documentation, and links to our documentation. And you can press continue, and we'll try to update your project files, like from .NET Core 3 to .NET 5, and also update some packages for you automatically. I mean, Microsoft packages. I must emphasize that we can't do all the migration for you. I mean, if you have some custom code, if you have some third-party packages, you have to update them based on Microsoft documentation and vendor documentation. But we tested a lot of sample projects, and at least for now in our tests, the upgrade went very smoothly. But we are looking forward to your feedback as always. Well,
awesome.
Next, I wanted to briefly describe some interesting changes in 21.1. For example, you might remember that Blazor applications support additional authentication providers like Microsoft 365, Google, etc. And we have this nice documentation article. And frankly speaking, it has quite a lot of code. And in 21.1, we have automated this for you. So in the solution wizard, you can specify required security options like this one, and the wizard will automatically include all the necessary code. So it's less work for you. What else? You also might have noticed that our wizard now allows you to create desktop and WinForms and Blazor apps at the same time. So it's now easier because in 20.2 we had a separate wizard only for Blazor and a separate wizard for WinForms.NET Core apps. Okay, what else? I also wanted to show some interesting feature. I think I can call it a community feature because it came after roadmap feedback and also some discussions in community. I am talking about the model editor enhancements regarding grouping. If you remember how it works now, it displays all the views in one list, so you don't have any grouping. In the next version, we made it possible to display views by type, because it's quite natural to work with this grouping. For example, here you can see department, and it displays its base views like detail view, list view, lookup list view, and also you can see in within the same group you can see a nested list view of the department type, like position, departments, list view. If you go to position. You also can see department positions because they have they form a relationship. Based on feedback, many people liked this feature, but we are also looking to your additional feedback. For example, I hope you notice performance enhancements, because this grouping allows you to build the tree faster. Unless I'm mistaken, it was like 2 or 3 times faster than the previous version. And also we did a similar grouping for the validation rules node. So you can see this grouping by namespace and by type.
Oh, that's a nice one. That's a nice one.
Okay, what else? You also may remember from the last meeting, I briefly describe a new criteria operator API that allows you to build criteria from Lambda expressions like this. So we have a new method from Lambda that allows you to build strongly typed criteria expressions like this. And it's an alternative to building criteria from strings. I think many people will like it because it's safer, it's easier to do updates if you rename your properties, your other APIs. And also here you can notice that we are already using this new API when constructing permissions. For example, here you can see a new method. Actually, it's a set of methods that end this from Lambda. And here you can see that you can use this expression instead of a string.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Because you don't pass a criteria, so you bake it into several helper methods, and so it's feeling really natural. That's really cool.
Yeah, and just in case while I'm here, I want to remind another nice method like that's very often used. It's first or default. It's an old feature, but many people don't notice it, or I don't know how to say. It's the same idea, so you can build the same criteria in code, and it's much easier to support to read than when you use strings.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
One question then is, before there was a functionality that I think was not officially released, but you can see them in some tickets where you can create your Lambda expression from a criteria operator. So will be officially released at one moment, like to have both ways in this case of this API, or that will still be like an internal part of Developer Express API?
Unless I'm mistaken, you are referring to XPQuery. It has a method that allows you to do what you described.
You mean the transform expression and
yeah,
the other way?
I mean, depending on what you see, like in the support center, right? Because there are tickets like during like long period of time that say like, okay, you can create expression from a criteria operator, because that is really neat. So it will be nice to have both in the same API, so you can do whatever you want. Like you have the two methods from Lambda and from criteria operator. But anyway, it's like something that it will be nice to have. But this is like amazing, actually.
I think you can't always translate a criteria completely to an expression, but that I think, at least from my understanding, is the reason why it's not an official supported way, but it works for 80% of the time or something like this. But it's not fully tested. Like with XP query, it was like a long time. It was like a little bit flaky, and now it's like solid.
Yeah, actually, at this moment, and all the new students that we have, basically the approach that we are teaching is the XP query, because it's like more modern, because you can use the Lambda expression that are more easier to understand, and you can find a lot of information in the internet. So we used to do only criteria operators to query data in general, but since I guess like 2 years ago, we moved to do mostly 90% of the time XP query in general.
Dennis, if I get it correctly, it is leveling up that feature onto the express up layer, so it is independent of EF and XPO.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's
and that's the main feature. That's the main feature, I guess. So you don't have to mind any kind of XPO or EF under the hood anymore. So it's on the XAF layer. So on the metadata that XAF provides.
This feature is ORM agnostic. It can even work without XAF. It can work with any type. So it requires absolutely any type. And as you correctly mentioned, it has a natural limitation that come from the fact that LINQ is a different subset than criteria language. So, and when it comes to using this feature in XAF or with XPO or entity framework, it's still important to bear in mind that what you write in this filter, it will eventually go to database. And if you wrote some fancy expression that cannot be translated into SQL, after all, it won't work, of course. So
the thing is, only thing is, Dennis, you mentioned it is more or less it's independent from XAF. Will this, for example, I see there is the join operand from Lambda, for example, but what about function operators, or for example, runtime defined types? Is there like a way to cross the boundary between strongly typed expressions and say, for example, add a field at runtime, and then is there something in place, or do you just build one part of the criteria and then stick another criteria operator in? I think that's also a big question for some users.
To answer the first part, it certainly supports function operator. Here you can see an example with our famous function current user ID operator, and it supports a lot of built-in functions. As for runtime members, it has again natural limitations, like when you expand the type, you then don't have this in metadata. So Visual Studio doesn't know anything about your runtime types.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you can get back a criteria operator, so you can join them together with binary operator, for example.
Absolutely, because for traditional string-based approach, it will.
And you can mix and match them, because that's something that you can't do in LINQ. You can't do that in LINQ. In EF or in XBQuery, you can't mix and match them. And because Credera operator is the lower binary more or less, of course you have to translate the string or the Credera operator 2 or 3 times, but that doesn't, if it's not in the help path, it doesn't matter. But you can mix both. And I think that's really beautiful. That's really, really hard to do in Entity Framework, for example.
Okay, I think that's it. Jose, you can take my screen.
Perfect. Okay, guys, let me share my screen then, and we'll go from there. Okay, you guys can see it? Okay,
Yep.
so first one, that criteria operator from Lambda, that's awesome. We have done a lot of performance projects, and those one always need to do a lot of refactor. And those refactors with the criteria, they get really like messy because the string is not that simple. You need to be checking that one. So that's a really nice one. And I actually haven't even seen the object permission from Lambda. So that's amazing as well. And we do use a lot the object space versus default. So definitely, those are really, really great tools.